Hi, I'm Ricardo, and this is Petit Coding. Okay, so I wanted to pause the Swift UI series this week to answer a question. And we have a question from Live and Learn, and it says, how do you crest, I think this is test, yeah, I'm sorry, okay, the story feature for an iOS app similar to what you see on Snapchat and Instagram. So I'm going to answer this question. I needed some code to be created first. I created some code first, and I'm going to show you the code. Okay, so here we have the code. Okay, for our feed. So I created a protocol that is a feed. It has an add and remove, right? I have a feed item. I have an ID, added date, expiration date, set added date, set expiration date. Okay, and I have a settings, expiration time to be 24 hours. I also have a calendar here. You'll see that in a minute, why it's for. I have a story feed that inherits from feed, and I implemented the methods. So the add, you will append the story as a story, and then you will set the add date as soon as it adds it, and then the expiration date, I'll get the hours expiration time, which is now 24, and I'll set that expiration date to 24 hours later. Also, I created a remove method. So if stories count is less than 1, it will throw an error. Else, the stories else it will just return the stories without the ID that was removed. And here's the story class. So you see there are all the methods implemented here, and there are private and public methods here, just to have it encapsulated. Okay, and here are the tests. I'll post the GitHub code on the description below so you can see how the step-by-step process that I did this. And right now, I wanted to show you that this is my get date. So this is how I handle dates. Okay, and also I have this add one story to the feed, which it's a helper method that lets me add a story to the feed, and another helper method that adds 2 stories to the feed. Okay, so what I want to do now is this implementation will work for the add and the remove part of the stories in the feed, and create an added date and expiration date. What it won't do is delete that story that is in the feed when the expiration date comes. Okay, so first of all, what I need is this func test. As you can see, all my tests have the method, something like the method here. So I'm going to say validate stories. Validate stories. It's a little bit slow, I don't know why. Func test validate stories, and that should validate stories when passed nil date. This should return an error. So we need to do the generate cases, right? So let current date. So current date will be a nil right now. So I'm going to say SUT that validate, and the date is going to be nil. Okay. That's what I'm testing right now. And since we're doing TDD, I'm in a red state, and it says that story feed has no member validate. So what I have to do now is go to this feed item. To this feed, and I'm going to say func validate date, right? Func validate date, command U, and it's failing because the story feed doesn't implement that. Okay, so as you can see, we have to implement it. So I'm going to put here public func validate date. Okay, command U. So now it's implemented, and my test is passing, right? Because a compiler error is a failure. And I'm going to say assert throws error. So what I want to do is that this function throws an error, right? Command U when the date is nil. So it fails because my test does not throw an error. So what I can do right now, it's a very simple, just throw ns error, and my error is going to be, my domain is going to be this single error, and the code is going to be 0. And then I can erase everything here and command U again. Error is not handled because enclosing content is not declared throws. Oh, okay, so I need throws here. Also, command U. And it's not implemented that because the feed needs to throws also. Okay, command U. And now my test should, and my build is still failing. Why? Oh, because I have to do something here. Let's try. Command U. Okay, so my test is throwing an error because I'm passing in a nil date. Okay, so I'm going to commit and push it. Added nil value to validate stories in the feed. Commit 3 files and push. Okay, so we're in a green state, so we can refactor now. And what I see is that this story feed, I have the same error here. So what I can do now is just say public private let any error equals ns error as this, right? Okay, and I can throw any error, and here I can also throw any error. Command U. Okay, and this is passing, so I'm going to commit and say push to remote, add any refactor, same error to any error. Okay, commit 1 file and push. Okay, now what I need to do is go to the test again, to story feed test, and say that test validate stories with valid date does not return an error. So when you're doing TDD, you always have to do the generate test, right? Assert not throw. I'm gonna try ut validate, and I need a validate, right? So let date equals get date, and this is a validate, and this is a validate. Command U, and this should fail. Okay, it fails because it does throw an error. So the only thing I have to do here is in the story feed, in this validate, just throw an error if date equals nil. If date equals nil, I'll throw an error. Otherwise, I won't. Command U. Okay, they start passing. So commit, push to remote, added validate case when date is a validate. Commit to files and push. Okay, and I have to do this because this date component, this current date, right? This actually gives an optional date, because this is what it does, right? This current date does an optional date, and you always have to be sure to keep your degenerate cases covered. Okay, otherwise you'll run in getting stuck. So always try to test the most generic case first. Okay, so another generic test is when my current date is the same as my expiration date. So let's let's just test validate stories when added date was a day earlier, then stories on the feed should be 0. When validate stories when added date, validate a single story, because it's not too many stories, it's a single story. When added date was a day earlier, stories on the feed should be 0. Okay. So my current date is this get date, right? Let's just arrange this and then we'll refactor if we need to. Yesterday date is going to be get date -1, or I can say the day here is going to be 7, since I know that the get date is 8 right now, right? Now what I have to do is one story to the feed with my yesterday's date. This will get, since it's adding 24 hours, this will get that my current date is the same as the expiration date for the story. So sut.validate story from my current date, but my current date is now, xct assert equal that sut.stories.count is going to be 0. So command U. Oh yes, I need to try here, because this throws an error. And this should fail. And it's taking long. Okay, so you can see it failed because it's equal to 1 and not equal to 2. I'm sorry, it's equal to 1 but not equal to 0. So what I have to do now is in my story feed, when validate, okay, if date is not nil, okay? So what I have to do is for each story in stories, right? If story the expiration date equals that date I'm validating to, and I'm going to remove the story with this story.id. Okay, command U. And I have to try here also. Command U. And my test is now passing, because it now has 0. Okay, so we need another test, and let's say it's a day earlier and an hour earlier. That means that it shouldn't be there either, right? Because the expiration date was an hour earlier, right? Okay, so I'm going to say func test validate a single story when added date was a day and an hour earlier. Stories should be 0. Okay, so I'm going to say current date is going to be my date again, and then yesterday date hour earlier is going to be this get date with my day is going to be 7, and my hour is going to be 0 because it's 1 and an hour earlier for that is 0. And then I'm going to do add one story to the feed with my yesterday date an hour earlier, and that will give my expiration date today and an hour earlier, right? So today and an hour earlier, the expiration date, it shouldn't be there, right? So I'm going to try sut.validate try question mark sut.validate. The current date is going to be my current date, right? And xct assert equal sut.stories.count should be 0. Command U, and this test is failing. Okay, and why is it failing? Because we only have equal signs and we don't have so the minimum amount of code, let's try this. Less than or equal, Command U. Oh wait, but it says operator cannot be applied to date optional and date optional. Okay, so let's unwrap them. And I can unwrap them because I already checked for nil here. You see, I already checked for nil here, so I know this is not going to be nil. Well, expiration date might be nil, but we have tests to back it up. So if by some case it is nil, the test will fail and it will say yes. So and it will tell us, okay. And so my test when validated was an hour earlier. The storage count should also be 0. So I'm going to commit and push. Added when expiration date is an hour earlier. Okay, commit to files and push. And now I have to do one test, validate a single story when added date was a day earlier with an hour later. Stories should be 1 because an hour later it's still not expiration date, right? So I'm going to say get date just to triangulate yesterday date hour later. Is this get date with my day 7 hour, now it's 2 because it's an hour later. Add one story to the feed with this yesterday date an hour later. I'm going to try SUT that validate current date current. I only said current, it should be current dates just to be consistent. Current date XCT start equal SUT.stories.count, and this should be 1. Command U, and it's passing. So you can see right now this is passing. So it should be working now, and that's how you test the feature with this. So let me just commit and push, and I'm going to say finalize the story remains when we add a story with an hour later from a day earlier. Commit one file and push, and that's it. That's how you test a feature that is similar to the story feed of Snapchat and Instagram. And what you can do is this: in this story you can add like images or title for the story or something like that, and you'll keep testing that, because what I remember is that the stories has like a video or an image, so you can put that in here and then test it afterwards, and then you can integrate it, and then once you integrate it, you just use these methods and you'll have the same story feed as Snapchat or Instagram. Shout out to Live and Learn. Thanks for commenting and asking this question. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and don't forget to push on that notification bell so you can get notified every time I post a new video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.